The book of Revelation is a weird book for a ton of reasons. I mean, I've spent most of my academic career studying this book, but I'm not going to lie, it is strange. I mean, in chapter 12, we have dragons trying to eat babies. We've got, Jesus as a sword swallower in chapter 1. Like, there is stuff in Revelation that we don't typically wrestle with in the Gospels or in Paul. Revelation is its own, for lack of a better pun, beast. It's its own thing. But today I was wrestling with the passage in my own heart in the book of Revelation, and it comes from chapter 10. Chapter 10 is after we see the message to the churches in chapters 2 and 3, which is after Jesus appears to John in chapter 1. This is after we see the throne room in chapters 4 and 5, after the seals are broken in chapter 6, and the 144,000 in chapter 7, and the trumpets in chapters 8 and 9. Chapter 10 of Revelation begins with this. It says, "Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven. He was robed in a cloud with a rainbow above his head. His face was like the sun, and his legs were like fiery pillars." These images are actually being pulled from descriptions of Jesus in chapter 1 and of God in chapter 4. It says, verse 2, "He was holding a little scroll which lay open in his hand. He planted his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, and he gave a loud shout like the roar of a lion." Once again, we see images of this angel looking a lot like Jesus and looking a lot like the one sitting on the throne in chapters 4 and 5. But here comes the weird part. Verse 3, "When he shouted, the voices of the seven thunders spoke. And when the seven thunders spoke, I, John, was about to write. I was about to write it down. But I heard a voice from heaven say, 'Seal up what the seven thunders have said, and do not write it down.'" The book of Revelation is weird for a multitude of reasons. But one of the reasons why is that 1/4 of the book of Revelation wasn't even written down. We have 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls. We have 7 thunders, but they were never written. And many of us think, okay, so now the point of the Bible scholar is to try to figure out what's in the thunders. No. The point of the Bible scholar is the same point as the Christian, and it's this thought. Do you have to know everything that God says in order to be faithful to Him? Do you have to know all that there is to know in order for you to be obedient? That's the question that the thunders are challenging me with this morning, that I'd like to challenge you with this week. It reminds me of a proverb from a Jewish rabbi. Once a Jewish rabbi was asked, "Why do you keep the dietary laws?" And his response was beautiful, but it's one that I don't know that we truly understand. The rabbi responded by saying, "I keep the dietary laws because I don't know what they mean." Do you need to have everything said in order for you to be obedient? Because if you do, let me tell you right now, your faith is not only going to be challenged, but your faith will be fragile. I absolutely am overwhelmed in amazement at the God that we serve. Because He has proven to me time and time again to be tender, to be generous, to be gracious, to be charitable. But He's also proven me to be so big that there is no problem He cannot handle, that there is no wound He cannot heal, that there is nowhere He will not go in order to reach us. However, it does not mean He tells me everything that happens. And it does not mean that I have to know everything in order to take the first step. As a matter of fact, Rick Atchley, who's a preacher down in Texas, he said this once, and I've repeated this quote, I can't even count how many times. Rick Atchley says, "We all want a God so big He can do absolutely anything. But we want a God so small that we can understand everything he does. The problem is, you can't have both. The problem is that if God is so small that you can understand everything he is saying, that if you have all of the knowledge of what it is that he is doing, then he will not be big enough to heal the wounds in your heart. He will not be big enough to help you overcome the obstacles that come your way. No, we have a God that is infinitely big. We have a God that is big enough to attack what it is that is keeping us from him. But if he is that big, do not be surprised when you are confronted with time and time again questions that you cannot answer and information that you do not have. The seven thunders remind me that even in this book of Revelation that I have literally spent 20 years of my life studying, that we don't even have all of it written. But one of the things I've been challenging myself with this week is this: Shane, you don't have to know everything God says in order to be obedient to what he's calling you to. This week, I don't want you searching for the answers to your questions. Instead, I want to challenge you to step forward in obedience, even as you are shrouded in the mystery of the infinite God. I love you guys. Talk to you next week.